What's up, guys? We're back for this Wednesday NCAA basketball slate for March 13th. Smash that thumbs up button if you want to see our picks every day. Subscribe to the channel for free and ring that bell icon so you get notified when we post a video. These picks are sponsored by StumpTheSpread.com. Click the link in the description to go over there and join our free email list and check our top confidence plays on all major sports. Get down in the comments with anything you want to say about these picks, these videos, or anything else. I respond to every single comment, and I'll give you my best advice on your picks to help us all cash some bets. Now let's dive into our first game of the day, Florida State versus Virginia Tech. Florida State comes in this game fresh off of a win over Miami. They're getting into ACC tournament play now. It's time for them to either put up or shut up. We see Jameer Watkins coming into this game averaging 15.1 points per game. That's pretty solid. The real problem for the Seminoles this season has been their defense, though. They have not really been able to stop anyone. When you're giving up 88 points and 85 points respectively to teams like Georgia Tech and Pitt, that's not a sign that your defense is really up to par. Their rebounding isn't very good either, so it seems like there could be some effort issues for this team. Just in general, they haven't been able to take care of business on that end of the court. They are putting up decent numbers offensively, so they're not too worried about that. They get up and down and they'll put the ball in the basket, but they can't really stop the other team from doing the exact same thing. The last time these two teams met, we saw Florida State take the loss playing at Virginia Tech. The Seminoles got absolutely dominated on the glass, so that's a big concern coming into this game. Florida State also couldn't defend the three-point line at all, so that's another big concern and plays into their whole terrible, very problematic defense issue. Virginia Tech comes into this game playing some of their best ball of the season. They've won 3 straight heading here into the conference tournament. They took down Wake Forest, which is a pretty solid win, beating Louisville and beating Notre Dame. Those are kind of expected wins, but hey, they took care of business like they were supposed to. There is one injury we're kind of monitoring for this game. We see Lynn Kidd, their starting center, who's putting up 13 points per game. He's marked as probable for this one with a hamstring injury. All the projections I'm seeing say he's going to play in this game, so I think we can pretty much expect him to play, but that would be something to monitor if there's some sort of weird breaking news. Keep a small eye on that, but right now we're not too worried about it because it sounds like he's going to be out there on the floor. Sean Padula is leading this team in scoring and in assists. He's a very solid player, very capable of running this offense. This team does not rebound the ball particularly well, but they did dominate the boards the last time these two faced each other, and they play much better defense. Virginia Tech is a better defensive team than Florida State. That could come into play in this one as well. They're about even offensively. They did not look even offensively the last time these two played, though. Virginia Tech played absolutely great. They shot the ball extremely well. They managed to get to the free throw line 32 times, although it was a game that's filled with free throws. Florida State got to the line 29 times, but they could not make their free throws, so that's another big concern, especially if it's close down the stretch. I think we can expect the Seminoles to miss some free throws. Give me Virginia Tech -3 in this one. I think they find a way to come away with the win and cover and survive and advance in the ACC tournament. Next up, we're looking at another early game. We got Fresno State taking on Wyoming in the Mountain West tournament. Fresno State has been one of the worst teams in the conference all season long. They have not been as bad as Air Force and San Jose State, but they have not been a whole lot better. They come into this game fresh off a blowout loss to Wyoming, and they've also dropped 7 in a row, not keeping very many of those close. Fresno State is just not a good team this year. They're only 13 and 17 against the spread overall. That's not a very good number. They really struggle to put up points at all. They're averaging around 360th in the nation in total offensive production. Their leading scorer puts up only 12 points per game and is shooting under 40% from the field. Isaiah Hill, I think, could be a good point guard in the right system. He's averaging 6 assists per game even in this terrible system, but he either needs some help or he needs to be looking at that transfer portal pretty hard. This team cannot rebound the ball, which is a huge concern, and they're going to continue to struggle rebounding the ball going up against Wyoming. The Cowboys come into this game fresh off back-to-back wins, but when you knocked off Air Force and Fresno, those aren't exactly great wins. We're not really worried that Wyoming's going to upset the apple cart here in the Mountain West, but they've been a much better team than the bottom 3 teams in the conference. Wyoming's been a better offensive team. Sure, their defense isn't great, but they've been playing through a real murderer's row here in the Mountain West. It's a very tough conference. They have not been able to compete with the top teams, but they've been taking care of business against the weaker opponents. They can rebound the ball a little bit. Like I said, the defense isn't great, but their offense production isn't terrible. Sam Griffin is a relatively decent leading scorer. He's a little bit inefficient from the field, but when you're putting up 17 points per game and almost 4 assists, you can get away with a little bit, and I think we're going to see him have a big night in this one. I have no idea why the spread is so small. Right now we're looking at Wyoming -3.5. I think we have to slam that number on anything less than like 10. There's no injury news on this one to make us concerned, so we're definitely on Wyoming in a big way. This could be one of our bigger bets of the day. We're very excited about this number, and hopefully it doesn't change too much. Next up, we're looking at an afternoon game between USC and Washington. We're looking at the Pac-12 tournament taking place place in sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. USC has been playing their best ball here at the end of the season. They closed things out going 5-4 down the stretch, and they topped it off with a huge upset win over number 5 Arizona. The Trojans have been playing much better. Has any of that been thanks to Bronny James? No, it has not, but we did see Bronny grab 6 boards and put up 5 points in the win over Arizona, so who knows, maybe he's improving, maybe he's a little bit worth the minutes that he's getting. We saw 3 Trojan starters score in double figures in the win. They are looking great right now. They've been playing their best ball of the season by far here down the stretch. I don't know what was going on with them early in the year, but apparently it has been fixed. USC is one of the hottest teams in the league, and they are taking on the Washington Huskies. The Huskies come into this game fresh off a huge upset win of their own. They went on the road and took down number 18 Washington State. This Huskies team is putting up over 80 points per game. They're a high-flying offense. They can put up a ton of points, but they can allow a ton of points as well. Their defense isn't very good. They just lost to USC only a few days ago, back on March 2nd. In that game, we saw Washington lose despite shooting 40% from 3. They made 13 3-pointers in that game and still lost. This team just does not play any defense. They had no answer for Collier on the defensive end, so that's not surprising with this team being so bad on that end of the court. Washington has been decent against the spread this season overall, but nothing too special, nothing that's going to scare us away from this pick. Right now we're seeing Washington +1. Give me USC -1 in this game. I think they find a way to get the win and cover. I think they're the better team right now with the way they're playing, and they have the confidence of just having won in this matchup. I'd be worried about a letdown game, but can both of these teams have letdown games at the same time? I don't really think that's how that works, with both of them coming off of big upset wins. Also, Washington is kind of in a weird spot with their coach leaving after this season, so I don't know if that's going to be an emotional up or down for them, but it's definitely another weird aspect to throw into this matchup. Next up, we're headed to the Big 12 tournament, where we're seeing Oklahoma take on TCU. Oklahoma comes into this game losers of 3 of their last 4 overall, but when 2 of your losses are against Houston and Iowa State, I think you get a little bit of slack there. They didn't keep things close against Texas, which is a little bit disappointing. Oklahoma was a team that definitely had some, I won't say big aspirations, but they definitely had aspirations coming into the season. Those have not really panned out. They're not a good enough squad overall. Obviously, playing in the Big 12 is tough, but you have to be a little bit better on the boards. They don't really have superstar scoring. Their leading scorer is putting up only 13 points per game, so that's kind of a concerning number. They need to find a better recruiting class. They need to find better production just across the board. Their defense has been pretty legit, but when you just gave up 94 points to Texas, like, how well are you playing on that end of the court right now? Survey to me would say not all that great. TCU comes into this game. They're running into kind of the same thing. They've lost 3 of their last 4, but with losses against Baylor, at BYU, and then at home against UCF in a nail biter. I guess we can't exactly write them off either. TCU is one of the best offensive teams in the nation. They're putting up over 80 per game. They're a very good defensive team. This squad has aspirations in this tournament. They are going to want to win a couple games, showcase that tournament resume. Their rebounding is a little bit better. The last time these two teams played, we saw TCU come away with a 9-point win, so that's nice, but it was very early in the season, so we're not going to rely too much on that. Emmanuel Miller is a very solid leading scorer, putting up 16 points per game, shooting around 50% from the field. I think we see the Horned Frogs put up some very solid numbers in this game. They've been great against the spread all season long, going 18-13 against the spread overall. I think they find a way to win by at least 3 and cover this small 2.5 number. Give me TCU to survive and advance in this one. Next up, we're looking at what's going to be one of my biggest bets of the day. We're looking at Air Force versus New Mexico. The Air Force Falcons have been terrible all season long. They're one of the worst teams in the Mountain West, but they've pulled off one key upset, and that was at New Mexico a few weeks ago. New Mexico has been one of the better teams in the conference. They've been ranked in the top 25 a bunch of different times this season. They did finish with only a 10-8 record overall, but the Mountain West has been a tough place to exist. New Mexico has work to do to make sure they make it into the NCAA tournament. They just missed out on a great opportunity playing at Utah State, where they ended up losing by 2 points. That's their last game, so that one's going to sting a little bit. They're going up against a team that they have a huge revenge angle to go against, and it is a massive, massive talent gap. New Mexico is one of the best offensive teams in the country. They're ranked 23rd in offensive production overall. They're solid on the boards. Their defense is pretty good. Air Force is one of the worst teams in the nation in basically every category you can imagine. I think we see New Mexico come out and get an absolute demolishing type win. New Mexico is 19-11 against the spread overall this season, and Air Force is only 10-20. 10-20 guys against the spread this season. They've been getting absolutely demolished. A large reason for that is because they absolutely cannot rebound against anyone. This is a massive revenge spot. This is going to be one of my biggest bets of the day and maybe of the season so far. New Mexico -13. get in on that one. Get in now. That number is going to go up, I think, and New Mexico is going to absolutely demolish Air Force. Next up, we're headed to the Big Ten tournament. We're looking at Michigan against Penn State. Michigan has had a season they would love to forget. We don't really know what's going to go on with them in the offseason, but you have to think there's going to be wholesale changes after they go 8-23 overall and 3-17 in conference play. This team has just not been good. The recruiting class wasn't good enough. They've had a bunch of weird drama surrounding their strength and conditioning coach. There's been rumblings from the higher ups in the program that they're going to hold on to their head coach, but we'll see if that actually happens. Michigan has been terrible, going 8-23 against the spread overall this season. They were obviously wildly overvalued at the beginning of the year. Sure, the odds makers have caught up a little bit by this point, but man, this is just a terrible, terrible team. They can't rebound. They can't defend anybody. They just gave up 85 points to Nebraska, and that was in a game where Michigan was playing at home. They're just not a good team at all. Penn State, on the other hand, comes into this game fresh off of solid win over Maryland. They have won 3 of their last 5 overall with a 1-point win over Illinois mixed in there. Penn State has tournament aspirations for sure. They finished the conference schedule 9-11. They could make some noise in this tournament, and they're going to need to improve that resume. This squad struggles on the boards a little bit, but they're not going to be worse rebounding the ball than Michigan. The Nittany Lions did win in a fairly competitive game against Michigan earlier in the season. They ended up coming away with a 6-point win, but that was quite a while ago, so we can't draw too much information from that. Penn State has been a reasonable 16-14 against the spread overall. That's a pretty reasonable number. They've got a good star scorer who's putting up 14 points and 6 assists per game. Those are good numbers. Their assist numbers overall aren't amazing. Their defensive numbers overall aren't amazing, but their offense can score the ball. They're in a great matchup against a team that is absolutely terrible. Penn State has to be in desperation mode to improve that resume. I think they find a way to survive and advance in this one. They're going to win this game comfortably. I think they could easily win by double digits against a Michigan team that has to just be relieved to have this season almost over. Last but not least, we're looking at the Big 12 tournament. We've got Kansas State taking on Texas. Kansas State comes in this game winners of 3 of their last 5 overall, which is pretty impressive. Most impressive, though, is they're coming off a win over number 6 ISU. To start that streak, they beat number 25 BYU. The Wildcats have just been playing better. They did burn us in a game at Kansas where Kansas State was +10. We thought the rivalry game would make it so the Kansas State would keep things close. That's not exactly what we saw happen, though. The Wildcats got absolutely demolished. This team isn't great offensively. They play pretty well on the defensive end. They can rebound the ball a little bit, so that's always helpful. Taylor Perry is their leading scorer. He's a little bit inefficient from the field, but he makes up for that by averaging 4.5 assists per game to go along with his 15 points. Cam Carter is a solid scoring option. Also, he's putting up around 15 points per game. In their win over ISU, we saw Kaluma and Carter combine for 44 points overall. They got 15 points off their bench. That's pretty reasonable, especially going against such an elite defensive team like Iowa State. Are we going to see a similar level of play in this one, or are they going to have a letdown after such a big win? Well, taking on Texas should motivate them a little bit. The Longhorns have won 4 of their last 5 overall, with the only loss during that stretch coming at number 11 Baylor, but their wins were over Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech, so not exactly a murderer's row in terms of Big 12 5-game stretches that you could go up against. Max Asmus is a monster. He's leading this team with 17 points and 4 assists per game, so his production is going to be very key. If he has a big game, great, the Longhorns are going to do well. If he has a bad game, not so great. The Longhorns are going to have a very tough time. Texas is only 12-19 against the spread overall. They're -5 in this game, so that's a little bit tough. They're showing nothing on the injury report right now, but man, Texas is only 12-19 against the spread. Give me Kansas State and the points in this one. I think the Wildcats find a way to keep it close. I think they dodge the letdown after such a big win over Iowa State. This game is being played in Kansas City, Missouri, so it feels like Kansas State will have a big home court advantage type feeling, at least in terms of the crowd in this one. They might not win this game, but I think it comes down to the last possession, and that gives the points the best value here. That's all the games we have time for today, guys. Hit that like button for good luck on all your bets. Let me know in the comments any questions you have on today's slate. Thanks for watching. You can click the link in the description to check out stumpthespread.com, and don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. We'll see you guys tomorrow for more NCAA basketball action.